My nephew sold my dead father's farmall from Grandma's farm and told her I was too old and sentimental to understand what he was doing. I found it shining on a dealer lot with a for sale sign in the windshield. What I did next cost my family its favorite lie. The tractor was not supposed to be there. I had driven to Hastings for a hydraulic fitting, nothing more exciting than that. A farmer can build half a day around one small part and still come home without it if the world decides to turn crooked. I was pulling into Prairie Line Equipment when I saw the red hood in the second row. Fresh washed, tires blacked, price taped inside the glass. I knew that tractor before I knew my own anger. My father had restored that old farmall in our machine shed outside Kearney, Nebraska. He painted the hood himself after hail beat it up one summer. The paint had one little run near the left seam, the kind nobody else would notice unless they had watched a stubborn man try to make old iron respectable with bad light and a cheap spray gun. I noticed. I pulled over so hard my coffee jumped out of the cup holder and landed on the floor mat. I sat there with the truck running, staring through the windshield like the tractor might blink first. It did not. So I got out and walked across the gravel. My name is Walt Gunderson. I was 61 then, old enough for my knees to predict rain and young enough to resent them for it. I grew corn and alfalfa on land my father had worked before me. I was not rich. I was not powerful. I was just the son who stayed, which in farm families can become a job title if you are not careful. Before I go further, get comfortable. Welcome back to MyChanel. The people in these stories usually get plenty of chances to behave themselves. My nephew got more than most. I put my hand on the farmall's hood. The metal was warm from the sun. That bothered me. It should have been cool in our machine shed with dust on the tires and a little oil stain under the block. It should have smelled like old grease and dry hay. It should not have been polished for strangers. The salesman came up behind me with clean boots and a smile that had never lifted a feed sack. Looking at the farmall, he asked, "Where did you get it?" That was not the question he expected from an old man in a seed cap. His smile stayed, but it had to work now. Local family, nice machine, runs good. Which family? I'd have to check the paperwork. You do that. He looked at me then, really looked. I'm not a big man, but there is a tone that will move people if you have earned it the long way. He heard enough of it to go inside. I stayed with the tractor. The serial plate was still scratched dull on the side. Dad had written that number on cardboard and tacked it to the shed office wall with belt sizes and filter numbers. After he died, I left it there. The corners curled. Dust softened the ink. I never took it down. The salesman came back with a folder and opened it on the hood. I almost told him to get those papers off my father's paint. Instead, I looked down. Sold under power of attorney. Signed by Mark Gunderson for Helen Gunderson, my nephew, my mother. For a second the whole lot seemed to move away from me. I heard trucks on the highway, a forklift backing up somewhere, the salesman talking about proper authority, but his voice came thin like it had to cross a field first. Mark was Laurie's boy. Laurie was my younger sister. Mark was 34, sold real estate in Grand Island, and had a way of making a pressed shirt look like a moral achievement. After Mom's stroke, he had started helping her with bills, forms, medicine runs, all the little things that pile up on an old woman until help starts looking like rescue. I had been grateful. That is the part that still embarrasses me. When did he bring it in? I asked. The salesman checked the page. A few weeks back. Did the money go to my mother? He blinked, sir. Did the check go to Helen Gunderson? He looked at the folder instead of me. That was answer enough. I closed the folder with 2 fingers and slid it back. He started with, "If there is a family issue." There is. He shut his mouth. I looked at the farmall one more time. Somebody had cleaned the dust off it better for a sale than family ever did for memory. That was what got me, not the money, not yet. The washing. Mark had stood close enough to that tractor to know exactly what he was selling. He had climbed on that drawbar when he was little. He had been told not to, ignored me, and smiled like rules were something for people without charm. He knew, and he had sold it anyway. I went back to my truck without the fitting. I sat behind the wheel with my phone in my hand and Mark's name on the screen. Calling him would have felt good for 10 seconds. Then he would know what I knew and what I did not. Men like Mark do not need much warning. Give them one loose thread and they will pull the whole sweater apart before supper. So I put the phone down and drove to my mother's house. Mom's place sat 8 miles outside Kearney, a white farmhouse with tired porch paint and cottonwoods behind the barn. The machine shed stood where it always had, doors shut, hiding the empty place where the farmall should have been. Mom was at the kitchen table with her blue percolator ticking on the counter. Her name was Helen, but I called her Ma when I was tired and Mom when I was trying to behave. After the stroke, her left hand moved slower. She hated anyone noticing, so I made a career out of not noticing too much. "Well," she said, "look what the wind dragged in." I kissed the top of her head. "Wind has poor taste." She smiled, tired but real. The same chipped brown mug waited in the cabinet. The same bent spoon sat in the sugar bowl. The same window over the sink looked toward the shed. Dad's chair was across from me, empty. Nobody sat in it much. Mark did sometimes. I had noticed that. For a minute I let myself pretend I had come for coffee. Then Mom said, "Mark told me he helped clear out some old stuff from the shed." I looked at her hand. The spoon moved in slow circles through coffee she had not sweetened. "What old stuff?" "Oh, you know," she waved. "Things nobody uses. He said the old tractor was taking up space. Said you did not want to fool with it anymore." The room went quiet around me. "He said I did not want it. He said you had enough on your plate." She frowned, trying to pull his words out of fog. "He said it would help with expenses." "What expenses?" "Walt," her voice turned weary. "There is always something, taxes, insurance, medicine. I do not keep track like I used to. Mark does that for me." There it was, not just a sale, a place taken. I could have told her right then. I could have said your grandson sold Dad's tractor, signed through your power of attorney, and had the money paid to himself. I could have thrown the truth on the kitchen table like a wrench. But she looked small in that chair. And she believed him. That was the blade. Mark had not only stolen iron, he had prepared her to think I was the problem for caring. "You all right?" she asked. "That's dangerous for a Gunderson man." She smiled, but I could not give her one back. She reached across and touched my wrist. Her wedding ring sat loose on her finger. "Mark worries about you," she said. I looked up. "What's he worried about?" "The farm is a lot for one man. He says you do not ask for help." "I never asked Mark to help sell Dad's tractor." Her hand stopped. For 1 second I thought I had said too much. Then she smiled the way mothers smile at stubborn sons. "Now, Walt, it was just an old tractor." Just an old tractor. I nodded because if I spoke, my voice would not have sounded like mine. When I left, she held my arm at the door. "Don't be mad at Mark, he's trying." I looked past her at Dad's empty chair. "Yes," I said, "he is." She did not hear what I meant. Outside, I sat in my truck with the keys in my hand. The shed doors were shut. The air smelled like dry leaves and diesel, the kind of fall air that makes every farm look honest from a distance. Inside that house, my mother believed Mark was helping her. On a dealer lot in Hastings, my father's tractor had a price in the window. And somewhere between those two places, my nephew had learned he could sell a piece of our family and come home for coffee like nothing happened. One question kept turning in my head. If Mark sold the farmall without telling me, what else was already gone? I did not call him that night. I sat at my kitchen table with the phone face down, coffee going cold and Dad's old Zippo in my shirt pocket. He had carried that lighter until Mom made him quit smoking. After his funeral, I emptied it and never refilled it. It had no flame now, no practical use, but I still carried it. Some things are not tools anymore. They are witnesses. The next morning I drove to the county record's office in Kearney. I did not start by announcing family trouble. I gave the clerk my mother's name and asked for any recent filings tied to the farm. She was about my age, glasses on a chain, face calm in the way of a woman who had watched families turn on each other over fences, wills, and driveways. She typed, she printed, then she went quiet and printed more. "There are a few," she said. "A few." I opened the folder on the counter. Routine things came first. Tax notices, old boundary papers, nothing that made the floor move. Then I saw Mark's name again, not once, several times. The worst filing was a development option on the river bottom 40. Cedar Ridge Homes out of Omaha. A clean name for men who would put a cul-de-sac where my father had planted corn. The land was not sold yet, but the hook was in it. The river bottom was not our easiest ground. It flooded when the plat got moody. Fog sat there too long on spring mornings. You could lose a tractor if you forgot where yesterday's rain settled. Dad loved it anyway. He planted an oak on the north edge when I was a boy. Everybody told him oaks were too slow. He said that was the point. A fast tree is for people who need convincing. Mark used to swing from a tire tied to that oak. He would run too fast, jump too late, land in the dirt, and get up laughing. Dad laughed with him. That is the trouble with betrayal. It does not erase the old pictures, it makes you carry both. I bought copies and stood on the courthouse steps in the sharp morning sun. Mark's signature sat folded in my jacket like a hot coal. I almost called him again. Then I saw my reflection in the dark phone screen. Old cap, gray beard, tired eyes. Exactly the man Mark had probably described to Mom. Sentimental, struggling, unable to let go. I put the phone away and drove to Mom's. Mark's black pickup was already by the porch. Too clean for a farmyard, black paint shining like it had never met gravel. Through the kitchen window I saw Mom at the table and Mark standing by the counter with a mug in his hand like he owned the air. That was the first time I understood he was not sneaking around the edges. He had moved into the center. I went in without knocking. Mom brightened and then got nervous. Mark turned slow, wearing a blue button-down and that smooth, real estate smile. "Uncle Walt," he said, "good to see you." He offered his hand. I shook it. His palm was dry. "You were at Prairie Line," I said. His eyes did one small thing, not a blink. More like the smile had to catch up with his face. "Was I?" "The farmall was." He set his coffee down carefully. "Oh," he said, that, like I had mentioned a box of old spark plugs. That tractor belonged in the shed. It was sitting there, Uncle Walt. A lot of things sit in sheds. He gave a soft laugh for Mom's benefit. Grandma needed some cash freed up. "For what?" Mark tilted his head, patient now. Patience was his favorite costume. "There are bills you do not see." "I see plenty of bills." "Not hers." Mom's hand tightened on her mug. Mark noticed me notice and his voice went gentle. "Nobody is attacking you. You have carried a lot for a long time. I get that." "No," I said, "I do not think you do." His smile thinned. "I'm just helping Grandma make practical decisions." "Did she make the decision on the hay rake too?" Mom looked at Mark. There was my answer. Mark folded his arms. "The hay rake was junk." "It worked." "You call everything working if you can beat it with a hammer long enough." Mom gave a weak little laugh. I did not. "What else?" For half a second Mark's face hardened, then it smoothed. "I've got it handled." There it was, the creed under the shirt. Old men worship rust. Sick grandmothers need clean-shirted helpers. Quiet uncles can be managed if you call control concern. I pulled the county filing from my jacket and laid it on the table. Mark knew what it was before Mom did. "What's that?" Mom asked. "A filing on the river bottom 40. I looked at Mark. "You want to explain why a housing outfit has a hook in Dad's ground?" He took one step toward the table. I put my hand on the paper, not hard, just enough. He stopped. Mom frowned. "River bottom." Mark chose his next lie like a man picking a tie. "That was Grandma's decision." Mom blinked. "I signed something." "You remember," he said softly. "We talked about planning, taxes, repairs. Walt cannot do everything forever." I watched his hands. Open palms, helpful hands. A preacher could have borrowed them. Planning is not selling, I said. It is not sold. Just promised. That is not how it works. Close enough for the man whose father told him never to sell it. His smile vanished for one breath. Then he sighed, tired of me on purpose. Uncle Walt, nobody is trying to erase your childhood. That line was bait. He wanted me loud. He wanted Mom to see red-faced grief instead of quiet theft, so I went still. Mark filled the silence. The river bottom floods. The offer was smart. Grandma deserves options. She deserves decisions that are not filtered through what Grandpa wanted 30 years ago. Mom looked down at her cup. I said, "Where did the farm-all money go?" He did not answer fast enough. Mom looked up. "The money." "Expenses," Mark said. "Whose?" His eyes changed, anger under polish. Mom said my name softly like a warning. That was when I knew how much work he had already done. He had taught my mother to hear my concern as pressure. Mark stood behind her chair without touching her shoulder. He rested one hand on the chair back. It looked respectful and still marked the ground. "I have been handling it," he said, "like you asked." I did not have the money trail, not yet. Mark knew it. The power of attorney made ugly things look proper if you did not follow the cash. He gave me the soft look again. "You have done enough, Uncle Walt. Let somebody else carry some of this." It sounded kind, it was not. "I am not tired," I said. "No one said tired. You just did in your way." Mom rubbed her forehead. "Please, both of you." That ended it because she was done, not because I was. Mark walked me to the porch, bold, considering. He pulled the kitchen door nearly shut behind us and let the grandson mask slip. "You need to be careful," he said. "About what?" "Upsetting Grandma." "That what I am doing. You come in waving papers around, asking questions she does not understand. She had a stroke. She is fragile." "My mother is not fragile." "Does she know that, or does she know what you tell her to know?" That was the first honest thing he said. Not true, honest. It showed me what he thought people were for. Then the kitchen door opened. Mom stood there looking from him to me. For the first time in my life, my mother looked uncertain about whether I was steady. That hurt worse than the tractor. Mark had reached into her idea of me and bent it. I stepped off the porch. "Goodbye, Mom." "Drive safe," she said. Mark said nothing. I drove away slowly because throwing gravel would have made him happy. 3 miles down the road, I pulled over by the river bottom field. The oak tree stood at the north edge, broad and patient. The filing lay on the passenger seat with Mark's signature showing through the fold. The land looked the same. That was the mean part. Paper can put a future road through a field and not disturb one stalk. I called Laurie from under that oak. She answered on the 4th ring with office noise behind her. "Walt. You got a minute?" "For you, maybe half of one. What's wrong?" "It's Mark." The background noise changed. "What about Mark?" I told her about the farm-all, the bill of sale, the power of attorney, the money not going to Mom. Then I told her about the river bottom. She did what mothers do first. She looked for a door out. Maybe Mom decided. "No. You do not know what the filing means." "I know enough." "You are not a lawyer." "No, I am just the man whose father told him not to sell that ground." That came out sharper than I meant. Laurie went quiet. I could picture her at her desk, one hand over her eyes trying to make her son into a misunderstanding. "Maybe there is an explanation," she said. "There is. I do not think it is one you want." "Do not do that." "Do what?" "Talk like he is already guilty." I looked at the scar on the oak where Mark's tire swing had rubbed the bark. He sold the tractor. Mom gave him power of attorney. To help her not strip the farm. She breathed into the phone. "Walt, he is my son." "I know." "No," she said. "I do not think you do, because if I look and you are right, I cannot unlook." She was right. Truth is not clean just because it is true. It comes in with mud on its boots and tracks through every room. "I am not asking you to hate him," I said. I am asking you to look. Silence, then Lori said, "What do you need?" "I need to know where the money went." Another silence, longer. "He keeps papers in his truck," she said. My chest tightened. "Do not confront him alone." "You think I am scared of my own son?" "I think he is not 12 anymore." That landed. She said, "I will call you." The line went dead. I stood under that oak and felt no victory. I had not gained an ally. I had handed my sister a shovel and pointed toward her own house. By evening, Mark had moved again. Mom called after supper. I was in the machine shed, standing near the empty rectangle where the Farmall tires had kept the concrete clean. "Walt," she said, "can you come over?" "What happened?" "Nothing happened. Mark is here. We are talking, and I think maybe we should all talk together." Nothing happened never means nothing happened. I drove too fast on gravel and too slow once I hit pavement. Mark's pickup sat by the porch. The kitchen curtains were half open. From outside, the house looked warm. A house can look warm while something cold is happening inside. Mark had papers spread on the table. Mom sat beside him with tea, both hands around the cup. Dad's chair was empty. Mark had chosen the chair near it, close enough to use the space without taking it. "Uncle Walt," he said, surprised on purpose, "what is all this?" Mom looked at Mark before answering me. Permission. My stomach tightened. Mark touched one paper, just clearing up confusion. "What confusion?" "The kind you have been spreading." Mom's face pinched. "Mark." "What? We should be honest." He looked at me. "You accused me." "I asked where the money went." "I used it for expenses. I said that." "Show me." His smile thinned. "I do not report to you." "No, you report to her." Mom lowered her eyes. Mark moved in. "That is the thing. Grandma asked me to help because this was all too much. The bills, the repairs, the emotional side." He said emotional side like a man trying not to sneer at church. "You have done a lot," he said. "Nobody denies that. But doing a lot can make a person think he is the only one with a say." I pulled the chair out and sat across from him, slow. He had expected standing anger. I gave him sitting quiet. "Say what you mean." "Grandma has rights." "She always did. And if she wants to plan for the future, she can." "Did she want the river bottom option?" Mom spoke before Mark could. "I signed it, Walt." I turned to her. "Did you understand it?" Her face changed. I hated myself for asking and knew I had to. Mark's chair creaked. "See, that right there." I did not look at him. Mom's mouth trembled. "I am not stupid." "I did not say you were. You think because I had a stroke I do not know anything." "No, Ma. Mark explains things to me." "I know he does. He said it would help the family." "Which family?" Mark stood fast enough that Mom flinched. He saw it and softened himself. "Grandma, I am sorry. I just do not like hearing him talk to you like that." There was his talent. He caused the wound, then presented himself as the bandage. Mom reached toward him. I felt Dad's Zippo in my pocket, smooth, useless, heavy. Mom looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Maybe Mark is right about one thing." I waited. "The farm is a lot for you now." The words landed soft. That made them worse. Mark did not smile, but his shoulders settled. He had brought her there one careful sentence at a time. "Maybe you are having trouble letting go," Mom said. The kitchen changed around me. Not the walls, not the table, not the blue percolator. Something in the air. For 61 years I had been her son. Stubborn, late, sometimes too much like my father. Now she was looking at me like I might be delicate and dangerous. Mark's voice came gentle. "Nobody is against you, Uncle Walt." For one clean second he let me see it. He knew he was winning. "You told her I was unstable," I said. He lifted his eyebrows. "I never used that word." "No, you are smarter than that." Mom whispered my name. I could have pleaded. I wanted to. I wanted to tell her about Dad painting that tractor and the oak tree and every night I came after chores while she slept in the recliner. I wanted to ask how many years a son has to show up before one grandson with papers makes him look like a stranger, but pleading is noisy. Mark had built his lie to feed on noise. I pushed my chair back. I love you, Ma. Her face crumpled. I love you too. Mark looked down at his papers. I walked out. In the truck, I watched through the kitchen window as he bent close to Mom, one hand on her chair, comforting her from the trouble he had made. Then the curtain moved and blocked my view. That night I understood something I wish I had learned younger. Sometimes the truth is not enough if the liar arrives first. Lori did not call until the next evening. I was at my sink rinsing a plate I had barely used when her name lit my phone. Lori. For a moment there was only air. Then she said, I found them. What? Deposit slips. My hand tightened on the phone. Where are you? In his truck. Right now. Yes. Is he there? Inside. That one word said close enough to hurt. Get out of there, I said. I am sitting in the passenger seat. Lori, get out. I cannot move yet. She sounded hollow, not scared exactly, emptied. What do they say? She gave a broken little laugh. What do you think? I said nothing. His name, Walt. His personal account, not Mom's, not the farm, his, deposits from the equipment sales. I leaned one hand on the sink. There it was. The tractor had been the hook. The land had been the fear. This was the pocket. The money had gone into Mark. Lori told me the slips had been in a manila envelope under the passenger seat, mixed with old receipts and car wash papers like grocery coupons. She had come by to drop off insurance forms for Mom. Mark went inside to shower. She saw the envelope when she moved his jacket. I opened my own son's truck, she said. I went through his things like some stranger. You do not have to explain. Yes, I do. So I let her. That was the least I owed her. She talked about Mark as a boy after his father left, sitting on the porch with a little duffel bag because he thought if he was ready, his dad might take him too. She found him asleep after midnight with mosquito bites on his legs. People think mothers do not see, she said. We see. We just explain. We explain until there is no room left for the truth. I had no answer. I could put them back, she whispered. Lori. I could close the envelope, give him the forms, pretend I did not see. He is stealing from Mom. He is my boy. Both can be true. That hurt her, I heard it. The line stayed quiet except for a house sound behind her, water running, maybe the shower. Something normal, that was worse. Mark was inside washing his hair while his mother sat in his truck with proof in her lap. Take pictures, I said. I did. Put the slips somewhere safe. I took them. That changed the air. She had crossed the line. Not because stealing proof from a thief is the same as theft. It is not. But because she could never again pretend she had not chosen to know. He will notice, I said. Maybe, maybe not. The envelope had other junk. Do not confront him alone. I am not going in there with this. I am bringing them to Mom tomorrow after work. I will be there. Do not come early, and Walt. Yeah. Let Mom see first. This cannot be you and Mark fighting over her head again. That surprised me, though it should not have. Lori had already moved from shock into order because women who survive weak husbands, hard bills, and difficult sons learn that if they fall apart too soon, nobody cleans up the glass. Okay, I said. Then she asked the question that had been sitting in both of us. What if she still chooses him? I looked at my hands. They looked more like Dad's every year. Then we keep telling the truth. That is not much of a plan. No. Sounds like something a farmer came up with. It is. For the first time, she almost laughed. The next afternoon, I pulled into Mom's yard 5 minutes after Lori. I had promised not to come early. Her car sat crooked near the lilacs. Lori never parked crooked. She stayed behind the wheel a minute with both hands gripping it, then stepped out with a brown envelope under one arm. She looked older, not by years, by knowledge. You all right? I asked. No. Fair answer. A flower pot had tipped near the porch step, dry dirt spilled across the boards. I looked at it too long. Lori saw me. Leave the pot. I was not. If I start cleaning, I will never go in. So we went in. Mom was at the kitchen table with tea. Tea had become her afternoon habit after Mark told her less caffeine was better. I resented that for no sensible reason. Maybe because he had even put his hand on what she drank. She smiled when she saw us. Well, both of you, what is the occasion? Lori sat across from her and placed the envelope on the table. I stayed near the sink. Mom looked between us. What is it? Lori's thumb rubbed the envelope corner. Mom, she said, I found something. The slips came out small and pale, folded once. They looked too ordinary for what they were about to do. Mom did not touch them. What are those? Bank deposits, Lori said. For what? For the equipment Mark sold. Mom's eyes moved to me. I said nothing. Lori pushed the slips closer. They went into his personal account. Mom looked down. Her right hand reached, then stopped. The left hand came slower and pressed flat against the table. Mark's account. Yes. Maybe he moved it later. Lori's mouth trembled. No. You do not know that. Lori took the hit. I know enough. The money did not go to you. Mom read Mark's name. I knew the moment she saw it. Her face changed in a way no son wants to see on his mother. Not surprise, recognition, as if some small part of her had known and had been waiting for the rest of her to catch up. He said it was expenses, she whispered. I know, Lori said. He said taxes were coming. I know. He said Walt was upset because he could not stand changes. Lori closed her eyes. I know, Mom. Proof was doing its real work now. Not the numbers, not the bank stamp, not the folded paper. A grandmother understanding that her grandson had used love like a key. Mom looked at Lori. Where did you get these? Lori looked down. His truck. You went through Mark's truck. Lori flinched. Yes. Lori. I know. That is his private. I know. But Mom's voice sharpened because fear will defend the person who hurt you if the truth feels too big. You should not have done that. Lori nodded once. Tears slipped down her face. You are right, she said. I should not have had to. The room went still. If you were in Lori's place, holding proof against your own child while your mother still wanted to protect him, would you keep going, or would you put the envelope back and buy yourself one more peaceful lie? Mom touched Mark's name with one finger. He is my grandson. No one answered because what answer is there? Yes, that is the problem. He held my hand at the hospital, she said. Lori covered her mouth. He brought soup. I looked at the floor. He called every morning after I came home. Her voice cracked. He said you were too busy, Walt. I looked up. I came every day after chores. I know. You were asleep sometimes. I know. He told me you did not want me worried. Her lips trembled. Did you? There are questions no one sets as traps, but they still catch you. Yes, I said. I did not want you worried. She nodded slowly, and Mark used that. Lori made a small sound. Mom looked at her daughter, then back at the slips. I need to see him. My body went cold. Ma. I need to see Mark. I wanted to say no. I wanted to bolt the door and tell the whole county nobody else was coming into that kitchen. I wanted to protect her from his soft voice, but protecting her from truth was how we got there. Lori called him and put the phone on speaker. Mark answered cheerful. Hey, Mom, everything okay? Lori closed her eyes. We are at Grandma's. The pause was small, small enough to miss if you had not been listening to liars for 2 days. Oh. Can you come over? What is going on? Mom leaned toward the phone. Mark. His voice warmed instantly. Grandma, you all right? I need you to come here. What happened? I need you to come here. Another pause, this one longer, then he gave a little laugh. Is Uncle Walt there? Nobody answered, he already knew. Okay, he said, I will come clear this up. Clear this up. Not explain, not answer. Like truth was a spill he could wipe before it stained. We waited with the deposit slips on the table. Nobody made coffee. Nobody talked about supper. The kitchen held us there, all its old comforts turned into breakable things. Then tires hit the gravel. Lori closed her eyes. Mom's hand tightened over the slips. The truck door shut. Boots crossed the porch. The knob turned. Mark walked in like a man arriving to fix a loose cabinet. That was the first thing I noticed. Not fear, not shame, annoyance. He had a gray pullover on and his hair was still damp. His truck keys turned through his fingers until he saw the slips. Then the keys stopped. His eyes went from the table to Lori, to me, to Mom. For one clean second the mask dropped. I saw the boy caught with his hand in the drawer. Not sorry, caught. Then he breathed once and put the soft voice on. What is going on? Nobody answered. That helped him. Silence helped Mark at first because he knew how to fill it. Grandma. Mom's hand stayed on the slips. You tell me. His eyes cut to Lori. Where did those come from? Your truck, Lori said. My truck. Yes. You went through my truck. Yes. He laughed once, sharp enough to make Mom flinch. Then he softened. Grandma, I am sorry. I am trying to understand why my own mother is digging through private things, and bringing random paperwork like this is some kind of trial. It is not random, Lori said. He turned on her fast. You do not even know what you are looking at. I know your name. His mouth tightened. I know Grandma's money went into your account. It was not like that. Too quick, there it was, not denial shape. Lori had still been waiting, I think. Not for innocence. That was gone, maybe for shame. Maybe for her son to say, Mom, I messed up and did not know how to stop. He did not. He reached for the chair beside Mom. I said, stand. The room went cold. He looked at me. Excuse me. You can talk from there. His fingers stayed on the chair back. I am not taking orders from you in my grandmother's house. My mother's house. His eyes flashed. Then he looked at Mom. See, this is what I have been talking about. Mom did not answer. That worried him more than anything I could have said. He let go of the chair. Fine. Everybody wants answers. I will answer. He pointed at the slips but did not touch them. That money was temporary. Lori closed her eyes. I used it to cover things, he said. Fuel, repairs, paperwork running around for Grandma, taxes coming. It was all going to be squared. With what? I asked. What? What were you going to square it with? I had deals closing. What deals? That is not your business. Mom's money is. He snapped before he could stop himself. It was not Grandma's money yet. The whole room heard it, even Mark. His mouth stayed open half a second as if he wanted to pull the sentence back. Mom's hand flattened over the slips. Lori whispered, Mark. He turned on her. Don't. No softness. None. Lori went still in a way that told me her body knew that tone before her pride wanted to admit it. Mark saw me watching. What? He said. Nothing. No, go ahead. You have been waiting for this. You always wanted me to be the screw-up. Lori's face twisted. Stop. No, Mom, let's be honest. Uncle Walt finally gets to prove what everybody already thought. Walt works. Walt stays. Walt helps Grandpa. Walt this, Walt that. His voice rose but stayed controlled enough to hurt on purpose. Mom looked frightened. This is not about that, she said. Mark leaned toward her. It is, Grandma. It is about him not being able to stand anyone else helping you. He wants to be the only good man in this family. There was his creed again, cracked open. Old men worship rust. Quiet men cling to ghosts. The clean grandson should get to sell the future. I stayed with the slips. You sold the farm all. Yes, he snapped. I sold the tractor because it was sitting there. Because nobody used it. Because this family acts like rusted equipment is a holy relic. Mom's face changed at the insult. He caught it and softened, but too late. The money went into your account, Lori said. I said it was temporary. There is no loan paper. His face got mean without moving much. You really want to do this? Lori's chin trembled. We are already doing it. You stole from my truck. I found proof. You stole private financial documents. You stole from your grandmother. The sentence landed because Lori barely raised her voice. Mark stared at her. Mom stared too. So did I. Lori was crying now, but she did not wipe her face. Mark said, I could sue you for this. That was his mistake. Not because the threat scared us. It did in its way. But because he aimed it at his own mother in front of his grandmother. Mom lifted her eyes. What did you say? Mark blinked. I am saying there are consequences for invading privacy. You would sue your mother. Grandma, I'm not saying I want to. I am saying this has gone too far. He tried to recover. She is being manipulated, he got in her head. I almost smiled because some lies are so lazy they insult the room. Walt has barely talked to me, Lori said. Mark ignored her and crouched beside Mom's chair, even after I had told him to stand. His voice warmed again. Grandma, look at me. She did not. She looked at the slips. Grandma. Her eyes stayed down, his jaw tightened. I have been here. I took you to appointments. I got your medicine. I helped with bills when he was out in a field pretending work is the same thing as care. That hit, I felt it. Mom did too. Some lies work because they carry a little truth in their mouth. I had been in fields. I had been late because cows were out or rain was coming or a bearing failed. I had told myself work was care because on a farm it usually is. Mark took that piece of truth and sharpened it. He was not sitting with you at night when you were scared, Mark said. I was, you know me. He reached for her hand. She let him touch it. I saw Lori break a little. Grandma, he said, you trust me, don't you? There it was, the last door. If he got her to say yes, even softly, he could live inside that yes long enough to twist the rest. He could make Lori regret looking. He could make me look cruel for continuing. He could make the family fight itself for years. Mom looked at his hand on hers, then at the slips, then at Lori. Lori did not plead. That took more strength than I had. She let her mother choose. Mom looked at me. I wanted to help her. God help me, I wanted to speak. I wanted to say, Ma, look at what he did. Look at how he keeps reaching for you when the questions get too close. But this was not mine to win with words. If I spoke, Mark would have something to push against, so I kept quiet. Mom looked back at Mark. His face softened into something almost childlike. Maybe that was practiced. Maybe not all the way. There was a boy inside him still, angry and hungry and sure somebody owed him for being left. For 1 second I felt sorry for him. Then I looked at the slips under my mother's shaking hand. Pity does not return stolen money. Mom pulled her hand out from under his. Mark froze. She sat up straighter. It took effort. Her left side still gave her trouble and tiredness dragged on her by evening, but she straightened anyway. Mark, she said. He smiled, nervous now. Yeah, Grandma. I want you to leave. No one moved. What? I want you to leave my house. His face changed. Disbelief, insult, anger. Grandma, you cannot be serious. I am. He has been filling your head. No. He pointed at me. He wants control. He wants everything going through him. Mom moved the slips into a straighter pile. No, she said. You took money from me. I borrowed it. You lied to me. I was going to fix it. You lied about Walt. That stopped him, not the money, that. His eyes cut to me, then back to her. I told you what I saw. You told me my son was failing. He is failing, look at him. Lori made a sound. Mark pointed harder. Look at him. He is 61 and still acting like Grandpa will walk out of that shed and tell him good job. He cannot run this forever. None of you can. I was trying to make something happen before this place eats itself alive. There was the speech under all his speeches. The thing he told himself while signing papers. I did not answer it. Mom did. Leave. One word now. Mark stared at her, then he looked at Laurie. You are choosing him over me. Laurie's face crumpled. No, she said. I am choosing her. He flinched as if she had struck him. Then he made pain into anger because anger is easier to carry. You have no idea what you just did. I know exactly what I did, Laurie said. Mom gripped the table. It already cost. Mark laughed once, ugly and small. Fine. He grabbed his keys. For a second his eyes went to the slips and his hand twitched like he might sweep them away. I shifted my weight. He saw it and smiled at me. There he is, he said. The quiet man, always standing there like judgment in work boots. I said nothing. That was the only answer I had left. At the doorway he turned back. You will regret this. He did not say who, maybe all of us. Then the screen door slapped, his truck started hard and gravel snapped under his tires as he backed around. No one in the kitchen moved until the sound faded. Then came the quiet. Mom folded first. She covered her face and cried the way old people cry when they no longer have the strength to fight their own heart. Laurie stood, stopped halfway like she did not know if she had the right, and Mom reached one hand out without looking. Laurie took it. That broke her too. I stayed by the sink because if I moved too fast, I was afraid the room would come apart. The deposit slip sat on the table, small pieces of paper, big enough to empty a house. The truth was finally out. Nobody looked saved. 2 weeks later, the farm was quiet in the way a place gets quiet after people stop lying out loud. Not peaceful, just quiet. Mom revoked Mark's power of attorney with a steady hand and a face that looked years older. Laurie sat close enough that their shoulders touched. I sat on the other side because Mom asked me to, not because I had won anything. The river bottom option got pulled back. Cedar Ridge wanted clean papers and an easy old woman. Once Mom said no and Mark's authority was gone, their interest cooled fast. Men like that do not like family trouble unless they are paid to cause it. The farmall did not come home. Neither did the hay rake, the disc, or the auger. Some things can be stopped. Some can only be named after they are gone. Mark went back to Grand Island. Laurie said he left one voicemail calling her a traitor. She did not play it for me. She did not call him back. We did not press charges. People can argue with that. Maybe they would be right. The deposit slips were enough to start something official, and maybe a harder man would have done it. I thought about it more than once. But every time I pictured Mark behind a courtroom table, I saw Laurie sitting behind him, losing the last piece of her son in public. So we chose exile. That sounds softer than it is. Mom stopped saying his name for a while. When the phone rang, she still looked at it too fast. Laurie came by more often and sat with her over tea neither of them finished. Sometimes I caught Mom watching me across the kitchen like she wanted to apologize again. She had already done it once. The morning after Mark left, she took my hand at the table and said, I should have known. I told her the truth. No, Ma, you should have been able to trust him. She cried then. I let her keep my hand as long as she needed. Late that fall, I walked into the machine shed alone. The west light came low through the door and caught dust in the air. The place smelled like oil, dry corn leaves, and old iron. Most of the equipment was still there, lined up crooked because that is how I kept it. But the farmall's place was empty. Just an oil stain on the concrete, dark in the middle, faded at the edges. I stood over it for a while. That tractor had been gone since the day I saw it on the dealer lot, but this was where I felt it. Not at Prairie Line, not at the county office, not even in Mom's kitchen. Here, where it should have been. I took Dad's Zippo from my pocket. The metal was warm from my body. The hinge clicked soft under my thumb. I could have filled it any time over the years. I never did. Some things are not meant to work anymore. They are meant to remind you what did. Outside, the river bottom ground was still ours. Mom was still in her house. Laurie still came by, even if she looked toward the road every time a clean black pickup passed. The family held, but not whole. I slid the machine shed door shut behind me and walked out with the empty oil stain behind me and the dead lighter in my pocket. Tell me honestly, if you had been in that kitchen, Would you have pressed charges and split the family open in public? Or would you have chosen exile and lived with the empty place it left behind?